welcome back for another Sins of a Solar Empire 2 video. Today we are featuring the Advent Justicia Dreadnought. This is the DLC super capital ship that is now available for the Advent Reborn faction, and we'll talk about what makes this ship tick. I'm not going to select it because you saw those weapon arcs. I'm not ready to talk about it. So to start with, it's a 600 durability super capital, which is the same as all other super capitals. It has a base shield of 9,000, armor points of 1350, armor strength of 75, hull points of 8,000, and antimatter of 295. Max speed is 700, and there's no additional ways for Advent to truly improve any of their move speeds unless you use Tachyon boost from the minor factions. So you're at a 700. Compared to some of the other ones we've looked at, I think we've looked at only the two Visari ones thus far, and those are both in the 600 range, so below you here. It does come with 3 fighter squadron or bomber squadrons at level 1. And then the weapons on this are 6 heavy beams with 12.5 DPS at 500 pierce, 11 medium lasers with 6 DPS at 200 pierce, skip the point defense for now, and then 4 medium missiles with 30 DPS at 200 pierce. One of the things that you are noticing here is that the highest pierce that you get on the ship is 500. There is a lot of damage on the ship just because of the count that you have here, but as you can see, it's mostly on, you have the 11 medium lasers, which is going to get you, it's only going to get you up to 66 damage at base with 200 pierce. There's not a lot of things that you do full damage to with those lasers. Now I'm going to do weapon arcs real quick and then turn them off. Really the things of note is that there are 3 point defenses that are only rear facing, and then everything else on this ship is front facing. Now these big round purple ones are the missile launchers, which is why you really can't see anything here. But let's see if I can zoom in on one. So you got your lasers. Where's your laser? Here's the beams. The beams are all down here. There's all 6 of them. You can see the 6 green arcs here. Those are all your beams. They're all forward facing. They have a nice little overlap in the middle, so you can very easily see what they're capable of. If you buff, this is buffed to only some tier 4 stuff, with the exception of the psi power, because I was playing around with that. So these are the tier. All the buffs on the ship are what you would get by the time you're getting to the ship. So here, instead of 9,000, we're at almost 12,000 shield. Armor points bumps up only about 100 and looks like 135, which is next to nothing. And then hull points is about 2,000. And again, that's with this shield up to 30%. It's with shield burst at 45 seconds. That's with the hull regeneration and hull points up to 30% as well. So I didn't finish up going all the way to the armor. I don't know if it's necessary at this point, but just wanted to do it. And then so antimatter jumps up to 384 if you have all 3 researches in the antimatter tree. And then your heavy beam goes from 12.5 to 15, medium laser from 6 to almost 8, 4-time medium missile for 30 up to 39, and medium missile goes from 30 to 39. So it's not the biggest bumps. These are for the most part low DPS weapons that, instead of getting like real high numbers on the DPS section, what you're really seeing is just the count. Between 6 heavy beams is quite a bit, 11 medium lasers is quite a bit, and 4 medium missile launchers is actually quite a bit as well. So we'll go over the skills real quick. So I'm going to go to my level 10 so we can talk about them. The first one is the Judgment. It is a kind of shoots a light beam out at a enemy target ship, and it's only to one ship, so it's not an AoE. And it has a nice range to it. Oops, let me see. So this is your range. Normally, that's your range of the cast, so it's almost at the full range of your ability to shoot. So it's got good range. It is single target, and what it does is it forces the target that you hit to use additional antimatter and have a longer cooldown on any time that they use a skill. So something like a progenitor that uses its shield restore pretty frequently, you are going to zap the antimatter out of that extremely quickly. Plus, you're also going to have the extra ability cooldown, meaning that it's not going to be able to cast it as often as either. So leveling this skill gets you better on cooldown, gives you a better antimatter cost. Leveling this gets you, where was I? Cat interrupted me. Leveling this gets you additional cooldown, lowers it from 60 all the way down to 35 seconds. Antimatter cost goes up every time you level it as well, and also your duration goes from, I believe it's 20 seconds all the way up to 70, and then antimatter goes up from 35 and then 5% each, and then that last level gets you up to 60 and 60. So it does do a very small amount of hull damage to the target you shoot it at. It's only 3% damage, and even if you're using all three of these when you build them, you're only getting 9% hull damage. And stuff like Visari is just going to regen that 3% hull damage almost instantly. Tech is going to have Hashiko's out, and they're just going to instantly heal that hull damage. Because it's super minor. It's not even like it every time something gets cast on the target that it takes more damage. It's literally you just use it the one time and you do 3% hull damage. So that might actually add up, I guess, and that's gonna be something like this. This is gonna be like a 400 damage or so nuke, but it's only to this big of a ship. Otherwise, it's doing next to nothing to the small ships. The second skill is Reinvigorate, and this one is unique. I'm going to get into the locusts really quick. So there is three unique items for this ship that are available from the moment you purchase them. They do cost an exotic to get, but there's the Malefic Locust, there's the Savior Locust, and the Mind Locust. And you can only equip one of these at a time on your ship. So just for grins, we'll look at you would essentially get one of each for your ships, because Reinvigorate gives buffs that you really can't stack on top of each other if you get them. So we'll go quick over this. So Reinvigorate has a 60-second cooldown, 100 antimatter cost, and a radius of 5,500, which, if you remember looking at it, is basically very short range. It's about half of the range of Judgment, or pretty close to it. So when you cast it, you restore in a very small area around you 500 hull, armor, and shield restored. It's only to the ships in the range around you, and I think it does all three. So if you use it when something's damaged, it'll give you hull and armor and shield restored. Or no, it says or, so it's or, whichever one of those is exposed. So if there's exposed hull, exposed armor, or exposed and shield's gone or something, then armor gets healed, and basically whichever one of those is the most available. So then what else it does is it gives a little buff to every ship that it gets used on. If you have the Malefic Locust, it's 30-second buff of essentially a 5% weapon damage. If it's Mind Locust, it's a 50 psi power for 30 seconds, and if it's the Savior Locust, it's a damage reduction of 10% for 30 seconds. And now you'll notice that I have 100 psi power already, so it's basically a 7.5% for having 100 psi power. So 100 is actually what you can get up to if you're just leveling the basic master training up to here. So it's pretty realistic that you'll have that if you can get to tier 5 if you're playing in a bigger game. Now, leveling this does not give you nearly the bonuses that you would expect. It gives you a reduced cooldown, and I think it gets down to 30 seconds. We'll check in a second. Increases antimatter cost every time you use it. And then radius actually increases by 500 each time. And then the restore actually goes up just a little bit. So it maxes at 750 versus the 500 it started at. Cooldown goes from 60 to 35. Antimatter, what did I say? It just goes from 100 to 125. And you'll notice that the buffs with the locusts all stay the same. So there's no change in that. Really, it's just a cooldown and an antimatter increase, and then a slight decrease in, or I'm sorry, a slight increase in the amount of hull armor or shield restored. So this is a weird one. I think it's a required skill for you to level. Where Judgment, you might just do a 1-point wonder, but I think Reinvigorate's probably the reason that you want this for your ships. Just because it kind of goes with the Reborn theme of everything stays alive. Now the problem is that because it is a restore and it's not like a damage, or it gives you the damage reduction, and that's really the big reason you're going to want to use it, is the bonus weapon damage given and then the reduction in damage taken, because there's a lot of focus fire in this game at the moment if you're playing PvP. And if you're playing PvE, it's probably a lot better because damage gets split around. But when you're playing against players, a lot of stuff gets focus fired. Like and you're going to be at the point where everybody's got access to their 1,000 Pierce unit. Everybody's going to be at the point where you will have can rack for the Visari. You're going to have Exorias and Destras out for other Advent. You're going to have Javelis out for the tech. So 750 restore for all of the units in that little range that you use it on is probably not going to be that much when things are taking like upwards of 15,000 damage in like a single Javelis volley, because they'll have 100 of them out on the field or something like that. So the heal, I think, while it's important because you really want the cooldown more than anything else, the reason you get it is for this weapon damage buff and the damage reduction buff, and you just have to kind of choose which one of those you're gonna stick with. The third skill is called Harvest. Basically, in that same small range around you as what you had with Reinvigorate, every time a friendly ship dies, you get max antimatter stack on this ship for, looks like, 2.5 minutes, and now you can stack up to 250 bonus antimatter, which it's gonna, when we get to Flare, you'll see why you stack the antimatter. But basically, you are kind of hoping that things around you die. And that's where I think the problem with this ship is that you're not going to get the damages that you want out of it. Things are dying, so you get your max antimatter stack, which means the things that are dying, and it doesn't count fighters or bombers, it has to be like a Corvette or bigger. 5 antimatter is not that much. And even let's say you had like 50 Corvettes out and they all get wiped instantly. You'll have something like Malefic Locust out. You'll have the Mind Locust, or you have the Savior Locust. Now the Malefic Locust does a radius explosion basically around the ship that died. So like if you had a Corvette circling something and it got shot down, it basically does a very small explosion of 250 damage at 500 Pierce. Now the problem with that is that the shortest range ship that we have is the Corvette, and that thing will just stay at a roughly a 3,000 range because that's its max range. So really, it's kind of a problem that the radius is so small, and I think I'm hopeful that the radius gets buffed to something a little bit more realistic. Just because this is not, I mean, there's no increase in going higher. So going up in levels, I'm just going to talk about that real quick. You only get radius and you get an increase in your max antimatter. None of the actual locus equips do anything for you. The damage stays the same on the Malefic. The Mind Locus gives you 25 antimatter for something that's immediately next to a ship. So let's say you've got another capital ship that's low on antimatter, you'll get like a small 25 antimatter restored to it, but you have to be within that 1500 radius, which means actually it's about this point here. So this is how close you have to be. Is these two aren't actually close enough to get the bonus from Harvest if this was to explode next to this guy. So we're talking, it has to be like right about here for it to trigger on anything. So stuff like, let's say you group a bunch of Tempests together, or group a bunch of Disciples or Guardians together. That's the only way that you are going to see any of this trigger. And then the Savior Locus gives a small area heal for the ship that explodes to nearby friendly ships. And again, it's maxed at 250, it's maxed at 25 antimatter, and it's maxed at 100 hull armor or shield restored. So I personally think that this is, I mean, you have to level something. I think Reinvigorate is probably what you max. You maybe get 1 point in Harvest just to have the passive there to trigger your max antimatter, and then maybe you get a couple of things that when stuff explodes, they kind of pop up and help a little bit. But I think that this Harvest is a 1-point wonder, and I recommend you leave it alone. Now you do get an additional set of max targets if you stack psi power. And if I remember correctly, it's for every 50 power you get 1 additional target. So if you can find a way to stack enough psi power on your ship, then you can maybe chain some of this together. But again, you're going to be at the stage in the game where there's enough Pierce around that the Pierce is going to be shooting at your capital ships, and your little ships are not going to be really doing a whole lot. So let's say you're running a bunch of Disciples and a bunch of Corvettes. Maybe you run them into an enemy fleet and suicide, but you also have to have your Dreadnought literally within this range of those ships already just to get the passive to proc. So I'm not real sure what this one's supposed to do, except you're also trying to keep ships alive, and you've got Cleanse to heal stuff around it, you've got Recall to pull stuff back, you've got Resurrection in 3 different forms between the Unity ability, between the Progenitor, and between why am I blanking what it's called? It's up here. Deliverance Engine. So you have a bunch of different ways to resurrect stuff. Oh, and then there's the planet item. I even forgot the planet item. There's the resurrection planet item. Where is it? Is it this one? No. No, there's a resurrection chance. I never remember what it's called. Is it in here? Nope, that's not it. So basically what I think you're supposed to do is you're supposed to let stuff die. Use any of your 3 or 4 methods of resurrecting something to essentially do damage to stuff around you, but also um, regen and get extra antimatter. So I'm not sure how this ship really works. And then the last one is the ultimate. It's flare, and basically you have for on a 2-minute cooldown, 20 antimatter cost, and it is a 8-second channel. While you're channeling, you do 25 damage per second at 500 pierce, and then for every piece of antimatter on your ship, so in this case I have 343 antimatter. Basically I do 5 damage for all 343 antimatter, and it all gets spent out on the target. So that's going to be about 1500 damage or so, which even if like I'm maxed out at 500, it's going to be 2500. So that might clear like the small stuff, like a disciple, maybe some tempests, and I don't even think it clears Harkas. Um, so I don't know, like it's a weird ability, and basically you, for every bit of psi power, for every 100 psi, you get to not spend 10% of your antimatter. Um, so it's interesting. And then to level it up, instead of 25 damage per second while you're channeling, and instead of 5 damage per antimatter, you go to 50 and 10. So maybe you get to a 5,000 damage AoE if you have enough antimatter stacked and you have enough max antimatter that procs. But that's flare, that's the channel, and then that's it. So again, I'm still struggling with what this ship is supposed to do, as far as what its identity is supposed to be, especially with all of the focus fire that this game has on it. So I'm really curious to see what everybody else thinks in the comments. And my opinion on leveling is you do 5 in reinvigorate, and the biggest reason you're getting it is because you want just a little bit more healing and you want to reduce that cooldown. So that's really what I'm looking for there. That way you can keep the weapon damage AoE active for 30 out of 35 seconds, and then the same for the Savior Locus, is that you're reducing damage taken for that 30 out of 35 seconds as well. The Psi Power one, I think, is, while it's unique, you definitely want to cast that one the first, and you want all of your capital ships to take advantage of it if there's enough or if you have capital ships there, and then do it right before the battle starts, and then you've got a bonus 50 psi power on everything. Alright, so going into items, this is what's probably the again, the weirdest thing. So again, you'll either have the Malefic, or you'll have the Savior, or you'll have the Mind Locus. I don't think, or I think you're essentially supposed to play with one no matter what, because while you still get some of these skills to do the ability, like in this case, you still get the heal even if you don't have the item on it, but then you don't get the nice aura that goes with it. So my opinion is that if you're fielding all 3 of them, you'll basically want one of each on your ships, and you kind of keep all 3 together. There are 2 ways to build it from what I can tell. You could do, you don't need antimatter pod. This really just is going to keep you topped off on antimatter. You're not burning enough antimatter, in my opinion, that you need to keep it on there. You've already got a nice big pool of antimatter, and early when you have, let's say you're like level 1, you still have a 60-second cooldown. Now you're going to get most of that antimatter back by then, so I don't think that this is a required item. Shield battery, I think you do, unfortunately, want to keep this on your ship. Biggest reason being is in culture you get shield regeneration while you're fighting, so you can get just a little bit more shield regeneration in culture, and you keep the passive on there, and you don't even really need to use the active. you're really using it for the passive, because 1,000 shield is not that big of a deal for this ship. The Votary Siphon, I do think you probably want to keep this on there, so I'm going to grab those two while I keep talking, just so I can keep figure this out while I'm doing it. Plasma Nova, I don't think you need it. You don't have any plasma weapons on this ship, so you don't make any use of the passive, and I think that there are better ships to put this on to use the active. We talked about the Locusts. Plasma Agitator, don't get it. You don't have any plasma weapons, and because you have only energy weapons, you have two choices in my view. Is either you can go Vex Amplifier and Energy Accelerator, which is going to get you like just a little bit more damage, or you just take one or the other and then go either Psi Power and Tanky, or you max out on your damage and then you just go into defense and you let other ships give you the Psi Power. So I am going to pop off the Psi Power one, throw the two damage ones on, and then look at the defense. So this is where I struggle with Advent, because you're going to actually I'll take the shield one off too. I'm really struggling with how this ship is meant to play, because it's very clear to me that it wants to be in the middle of your fleet, for a fleet that is exceedingly stacked together. They're on top of each other because you're taking advantage of Harvest, of everything being next to each other. You're taking advantage of Reinvigorate. So if that's the case, my thought process on this is that you want to be as tanky as possible. So you might want the structural force fields to just give you extra hull, and you're going to pop up to 20,000 hull at that point with this bonus 30 on it and being level 10. You're going to definitely want the synchronous shield, because you're going to go from 21 to 26. You have next to no armor, so it's my thinking that you don't want the psykinetic plating, but we'll just check it anyway. So you get an extra 1,000, so maybe you do get it. And then the Consecration Inducer. This one I struggle with finding space on the ship, and it's got such a long cooldown and no passive to it that I don't know that it's a necessary pickup. Now if you do go with the Psi Power, I actually think that this ship, you kind of want levels on it just for the tankiness. So early on, when it's a low level, maybe you do get Guiding Mentor, and then toss it when you've gotten enough levels on it or enough experience on it. But maybe consider this early in the game. Harmony Circuit, I think that you can throw Harmony Circuit on just about every single one of your capital ships at a certain point, just so that they can keep buffing each other with Psi Power. This one, I think, is no exception. I think you kind of follow the same process if you think it's a necessary item. Psionic Dynamo, I don't have much experience with using this one, just because there's not enough ships, in my opinion, that make use of casting skills quick enough to stack this up. So you can stack it up to 100. I don't think you usually get to 100 on very many ships with the duration. If you guys are actually finding that you can do that, I would appreciate comments, because I don't use this item and maybe I need to start using it more often. So let me know your thoughts on that one. Brilliance Array, I think, belongs on a different ship in your fleet, probably one that is fully stacked on Psi Power, just to give the antimatter regen to everybody else in the fleet. And this one's, I mean, it just goes on one ship and then you ignore it. And then Essence Reservoir, this is the one that I found the most interesting, because it's kind of doing the same thing as what Harvest is doing with your ships. So anytime something dies, you get the bonus here. You may as well also get it here. because these two are going to play off of each other as much as you can. So I think it's an interesting choice, but I don't think that there's a reason to get it, because I think what you'd rather have is damage, because your beams and your lasers are going to basically go up twofold by getting the damages, and this ship is already kind of low on damage. So, and it's because it's low on damage. Oh, not low on damage. It's low on pierce. So you have to stack the damage as high as you can, because you're going to be doing reduced damage to the big stuff, and you're already going to be tier 4, where there's going to be a bunch of stuff that can kill you. Now, I did do a quick calculation on what this damage maxes out at. Is you end up with 801 DPS on this ship, and that's not counting the point defense lasers. That's just the beam, the laser, the medium laser, and the medium missile. And again, while that seems like a pretty big number, the only one that's going to be doing full damage to a capital ship is the beams, and those do 252 damage. And then with the medium laser and the medium missile, you're essentially doing what is it, 33% damage. Am I calculating it? 550. No, you're doing 25% damage to regular capital ships. You're doing 20% damage to any of the super capitals, and you're doing like 18% damage to a Titan and less to everything else. So this is a weird ship to me. It looks to be like it's built to fight small ships, and have a supporting role, but I don't think that the supporting role is currently strong enough. And I know that they're afraid that if they overbuff it, like right here, if they overbuff the psi power ratios, then they're worried that you throw this next to like 100 illuminators, and then all of a sudden you've got, instead of, in this case, it would be 12.5 bonus weapon damage, bump it to like 22% bonus weapon damage, and then they're afraid that it's the same problem. It's my opinion that I find this ship to be in a weird spot. I don't think it's strong enough, and I'm pretty sure that this is the weakest out of the 6 super capitals that were just introduced. I did play an AI game with this one, and basically it kind of played out how I thought it did. I was up against the tech primacy, and they brought 70 Javelis into a system, and I didn't have any AoE to speak of here. I had very little AoE other than Malice on a why am I blanking on what it's called, on a Rapture, but there's not much AoE in the Advent arsenal. You've got Plasma Bomb, you've got Malice on the Rapture, but the rest of these don't have AoE damage. So I don't think that this ship actually adds anything to it that you were missing, and I don't think it gives you enough, I'm going to call it reborn features to make it. I mean, you have to pick it up when you get to it, just because it's the super capital, but I don't think it's going to be strong enough in its current state. I think this is going to require a buff. Now, Unity items, Clairvoyance is always good. Cleanse, you're going to be cleansing Guardians just to keep everything alive as best you can. Use it on cooldown as you can. Recall, use it to get out of a fight that you don't think you can win, and because you already have a base 700 move speed, maybe you can get away from whatever's shooting you in the same gravity well, and not die while you're waiting for recall to charge up and go off. Sanctify has no impact on how this ship functions. Sacrifice has no impact on how this ship functions. And then Resurrection, this is probably the only one that really does impact what you're doing. is you are waiting for everything to die so that you can get all these stacks up and all these damage buff, do damage, get antimatter, and get hull. Wait for everything to die, use resurrection, and let it happen again. So hopefully maybe you've got harvest and you run a bunch of light frigates within melee range of other ships, or corvettes in melee range of other ships. So that's unfortunately kind of what we're doing, is we're running in to the point where we're on top of an enemy fleet, and you kind of just have to take whatever fight you're in. That's about all you can do. And then as far as buffs go, you obviously want to be as tanky as you can with all the shields. You want to get the antimatter, because the max antimatter is actually going to impact how good flare is. You definitely want the beam damage, because this is your only pierce, and then you'll get the laser and beams all the way up to the damage and the range, just because you kind of need it. And then I still think you get the energy accelerator, just because it buffs every weapon on the ship except your missiles. Plasma does nothing for you other than help you with bombing damage. It doesn't have anything to do with reload, so just skip over it. Missile damage. You do have a decent amount of missile damage on this ship, so you do want to be heavy into that weapon. And definitely get the anima redirection. It shoots a lot of missiles really fast, so just kind of let it do its thing. You definitely want the hull, and you definitely want the armor points and armor strength wherever you can get it. And then psi power, I think you still want to stack psi power on this if you can. Get some revelations to go with it, to use that guidance on there to get you quicker cooldowns, and then maybe you'll be able to cast this heal just that much more quicker. And then minor factions, I don't have anything revealed, but the one that really seems to speak to me is you want the Aluxian plus experience and minus cooldown, because reinvigorate is really only held up by cooldown. It doesn't change on healing in any way, is you're just kind of looking to reapply it as often as you can. So if you can find a way to do cooldown, find a way to do it. So that's it for the Justicia Dreadnought. I do want to know what your guys' thoughts are in the comments. I think it's a cool looking ship, and I think it has potential, but I think it's probably going to need a buff of some kind. Just because you look at literally what other factions have. Like you get the Loyalist one. This one, every single weapon on this ship is 600 pierce or higher. So even though it's got lower damages, it's already piercing stuff. And you just buff one weapon and it gets bigger. You've got the Wanderer, which it's going to buff its bombers, and it's going to try and bomb you from afar before you can even get close enough to do anything about it. You've got the Tyrant, which I don't know how much this one's going to really be in there, because you're going to be head-to-head against it. It's going to be using nano culling, you're going to be using regenerate, and then everybody's just kind of going back and forth. It is probably going to still out DPS your fleet from your heals, and you kind of just got to play the resurrection game on it. It's such a cool ship. So it's I think it's in a weird spot, and we'll have to see where it ends up. So that's what I got. So let me know your comments below, and I look forward to seeing what everybody has to say. See you next time.